Hi, I'm Deboki, and this is Okie Dokie Boki. And in the past few videos, we've talked about kind of serious things or important-ish sort of things, like fact-checking and nonfiction and finding your place on BookTube. But today, we're gonna do things a little different. Today, we're gonna talk about Vanderpump Rules, which I would argue is actually maybe the most important topic of all. Vanderpump Rules is technically just a reality TV show about a bunch of West Hollywood bartenders and servers working at SUR, a restaurant owned by Lisa Vanderpump of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fame. In actual reality, the show is an incredibly human drama about all the ways there are to be terrible and the toxic hold fame can have on your friendships. The show is a masterpiece in reality TV. There have been fights in Las Vegas parking lots, there have been accusations of cheating to cover up actual cheating, which may be in response to other cheating, which might also be a response to other cheating. The cheating on the show has gotten to a point where there have been infirm 90-year-old women who have been quietly minding their own business while cheating goes on in the room next door. And at the core of all this is probably one of the most consistent casts on Bravo. This is a cast made up of people who have done some terrible things to each other, but who have also been so committed to the pursuit of fame until it's no longer clear what morality even really looks like on this show. Of course, all of this has led to the first Vanderpump Rules book. Next Level Basic was written by Stassi Schroder and came out this past April. You might be wondering if Bravo TV stars getting their own book deals is part of the ongoing dumbing down of culture. To which I say that culture has been dumb for as long as humans have been making it. But also, Next Level Basic promises to be, quote, the definitive basic bitch handbook. And truly, there's no one more qualified to write this book than Miss Stassi Schroder, who in one episode asked the important question, is that my problem? That I'm too pretty? My secret shame as a Vanderpump Rules fan is that I don't actually know when I'm going to read Next Level Basic, but I still wanted to mark this momentous occasion with something. So I'm going to do the next best thing, which is to introduce the cast of Vanderpump Rules into something resembling a literary canon. And I'm going to do that by basically casting the cast as books, describing what kind of book they are. It might be that they have some kind of kinship to the plot of a book. It might be a particular character in a book that they kind of seem to be very similar to, or it might be just something fundamental to the way they lead their existence, at least on the show, reminds me of a particular feeling generated by a book. I don't know, this makes no sense. There's no rules, but just bear with me, stick with me, because I feel this compulsion to do this. I do want to issue some kind of preemptive sort of statement of sorts going into this, because reality TV does bring out a lot of strong opinions in people, me included. And sometimes it can get uncomfortable to read the way that people talk about reality TV stars as if we really know who they are just because we watch them on our television. Anything I'm about to say is based solely on what the cast of Vanderpump Rules has chosen to put on screen or on social media or any of their other public platforms. I'm treating them like they're characters in a story because in some ways that's all they are kind of to me. Vanderpump Rules is a show that I watch weekly and that I also binge regularly. Probably it's not good for me, but whatever it is, these people to me are just characters. I'm missing out on the bajillion other things that are a part of their lives that, are not a part of the show and are not for me as an audience. Some of the people I don't like on the show might actually be wonderful people in real life and vice versa. And at the end of the day, the joke is on me. Whatever judgments I have, they're the ones who are getting paid a shit ton of money to be basically partying and fighting all day. So let's go into it. Let's start with the woman of the hour herself, Stassi Schroder. Stassi started the first season of Vanderpump Rules by saying, "My mom has always told me I'm the descendant of a Swedish princess, so I try to act like one." And boy, has she. Stassi spent the first season as either probably the most sympathetic villain on TV or the most unsympathetic heroine on TV. And over time, her status as Queen Bee has gradually diminished, but she's had this sort of interesting trajectory over the course of the series. As for what book she is, Stassi is probably the A Song of Fire and Ice series by George R. R. Martin, and I kind of resisted making this comparison for her because I was a little bit resentful. One of the most basic things about Stassi is her deep love for Khaleesi. I'm kind of curious about how that love is playing out right now. But whatever, it's, I felt a little bit resentful that I was like kind of playing so neatly into her hands. But by the same token, I feel like that resentment I feel is part of why I have to go for it. Because like Stassi herself, Game of Thrones and its follow-ups are gratuitous in their depictions of violence. They're both cruel to women and display a seeming disregard for the existence of people of color. At the same time, they're enormously compelling, and they keep you, as the audience, far more invested than you might even want to be. And for all the trappings of moral ambiguity in both of them, there seems to be a beating heart at the center of it all that kind of makes you root for them, even when you don't want to. Next, of course, has to be Jax. Oh, Jax is a former male model who started the show as Stassi's boyfriend, only for their relationship to fall apart very quickly. At first, the demise of their relationship seemed to largely fall on Stassi's temper and possessiveness, but one of the defining moments of the show, really one of the moments like that told you from the beginning what Vanderpump Rules was going to be, was the revelation at the end of the first season that all of her fears about him were completely grounded. Jax is an emotionally manipulative vortex who seems to take bright, happy young women in and then proceeds to betray and devastate them. Future partners have had ample warning, thanks in no small part to the fact that his antics have been displayed and dissected on a very large platform. And yet they willingly sign up for the ride, in part because the most dangerous aspect of Jax is his charm. Jax is A Little Life by Hana Yanagihara. I have not read A Little Life, and much like Jax himself, I am not quite sure I understand the allure. I have spent 7 years watching multiple women fall for Jax the way that I have watched multiple people start A Little Life, knowing that it will tear them apart. I have been told that it is a very well-written book, and I believe that. Just as I believe that Jax is a charmer who makes convincing attempts at change. But if there's ever a book that feels like the equivalent of finding out that your boyfriend impregnated a stripper in Vegas and then turned all your friends against you when you called him out on that, and then a year later finding out that he boned your best friend on her boyfriend's / his best friend's couch, and then spending the next few years after that learning about all the new creative ways he's found to cheat on his girlfriends. If there was ever a book that felt like the emotional equivalent to all that, I think it might be A Little Life. And with that said, let's move on to Jax's fiance, Brittany. I had a hard time thinking of a book for Brittany, in part because I don't quite get her yet. She came onto the show a few seasons ago as this like sweet Southern girl dating Jax, and she's really spent her seasons being built up as the one who's changed him. Except that, spoiler alert, he cheated on her. She decided to take him back after he underwent some of his own traumatic shit, and she decided that he had changed enough and she forgave him, and now they're engaged. And Brittany has spent the show kind of really leaning hard on her Southern charm, but over the past season, she's aligned herself with some really mean behavior on the part of her friends and her fiance. So that's part of why I still feel like I'm getting a handle on who she is. So for now, for Brittany, I ended up going with another series I haven't read, though at this point, it's been talked about so much that I feel like I have, and this is the Twilight series by Stephenie Meyer. Like Bella, Brittany is living out her own major transformation, though I guess instead of becoming a vampire, she is becoming a reality TV star. You could argue, what's the difference? We're not going to get into that right now. This transformation is due in part to a relationship that, similar to Bella, is only romantic if you decide to ignore a lot of the major red flags along the way. Just as I am grudgingly happy for fans of Twilight that they have something that they love, I am happy for her and the people who enjoy her story, even though I am personally deeply cynical about it and don't really enjoy watching it on screen. Let's move on from Brittany to Kristen Doughty. Kristen started off dating Tom Sandoval, who we'll get to later, so he cheated on her, only for it to come out later that she had probably cheated on him several times, but most notably with Jax, who is his best friend. understand that I respect the genre too much to say this lightly. The trajectory of that revelation is one of the greatest narrative arcs in reality TV. Kristen is a roller coaster. At times you root for her because she's kind of an endearing mess, but she also has a tendency to become fixated on her revenge, like at a point where it's far exceeded something that's healthy for her. From helping to bring in a girl from Miami who she thinks her ex-boyfriend has cheated on his current girlfriend with, to repeatedly yelling at the girlfriend of a different ex-boyfriend. It takes Kristen a long time to move past a slight, which means that Kristen has the distinct honor of being the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Like the Count, Kristen has a flair for the dramatic, and at times she seems to realize that her grudges have gotten past the point of being good for her. At her core, like the Count, Kristen just wants justice. So if you ever need someone to theatrically carry out some kind of angry revenge plan for you, Kristen is probably your girl, but like, probably better to leave it be. For the next one, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to do a double. We are going to do Tom Schwartz and Katie Maloney together. So Tom Schwartz is Jax and Tom Sandoval's best friend. Katie Maloney is best friends, or has throughout different periods of the show been best friends with Kristen and Stassi. They have now declared themselves the Witches of WeHo. It's a whole thing. Tom Schwartz and Katie Maloney have been together since the beginning of the show. They are currently married. If you thought that that meant that there would be no cheating in their story, unfortunately, you would also be wrong about that. Tom and Katie have enough going on their own that, like, I could pick a book out, like, you know, to describe their own individual spirit or whatever. But in the past few seasons, their relationship and now their marriage has almost become like its own character on the show. A haunting presence that lurks behind every cruel thing that Tom says to Katie and every cruel thing that she says to every other woman on the show. Whenever they're on the screen, the book I can't stop thinking about is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Like Nick Dunn, Tom is a directionless charmer who, you know, just occasionally calls his wife a bitch and cheats on her and then calls her a bitch again. Katie responds in true Amazing Amy fashion by flexing her own meanness as much as possible. Whether it's deriding Tom's genitalia or calling women whores, Katie doesn't have the subtlety to pull off a mastermind plot like Amazing Amy Dunn did in Gone Girl. Instead, Katie takes more of a blunt approach. She likes to send her husband and co-workers long, rampaging, abusive texts. But the result is surprisingly similar. One of the darkest fights on this show took place on Katie and Tom's joint bachelorette party, but at the end of it, Katie took a pretty measured perspective, you might say. She said, "We've aired a lot of grievances. We've fought enough that we just need to bottle it up, and we can open that bottle after the wedding," which I'm pretty sure is basically the ending of Gone Girl, except for the wedding. Next up, we're getting to Tom Sandoval, the bartender turned bar owner, with his compatriot Tom Schwartz. They now own the bar, creatively titled Tom Tom, which was offered to them by Lisa Vanderpump. There's probably a lot of shady stuff going on there. I'm very intrigued. I also really want to try it. Anyways, at times, Sandoval has been a model, a musician, and an actor, which I think is probably like the holy trinity of West Hollywood. Picking a book for him was kind of hard and weird. It's not like, you know, Brittany, where I just didn't have enough of a sense. It's more that, like, Sandoval's kind of a funny character. I had this book that I immediately, like, just instinctively thought of for him, but I didn't know why. So I just, like, noted it down and then immediately forgot about it. And then I was, like, in the shower and just thinking again, like, what book should I pick for Tom Sandoval? And this book came to my head again. And then I go to my notes and I see it and it's there. And I'm like, oh. And that book is Harry Potter. I don't know really why. And I don't think it's even any one particular book in the series. I just think it's the whole series. I think what it is that, like the series, Sandoval is a little bit silly, but he's also a little bit dark. He's also a little bit problematic, but he's a ton of magic. And so, yeah, Sandoval is Harry Potter. Next, we're going to go to my favorite person on the show, which is Ariana Madix. She is dating Tom Sandoval. She has been attacked by some of the Witches of WeHo, but also now starting to become friends with them. It's a whole complicated dynamic. But I'm just going to admit my biases up front. I have been an Ariana stan from basically her first season on the show. Has she been perfect? Of course not. But As far as I can tell, she's the voice of reason on this show, and I personally think every reality TV show needs one. The most common complaint I see about her, and this really comes up in every complaint about like other voice of reasons on reality TV shows, is that people think that she's arrogant or that she thinks that she's above it all. To which I say, like, I mean, don't we all think we're kind of like above this? Ariana's existence on the show involves a lot of pointing out uncomfortable truths to the people around her, and in response, people act like she's personally coming into their homes, setting down a pedestal, and then lifting herself onto it, which makes her the life-changing magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Does Marie Kondo want you to throw away all your things? No. Does she want you to dump all your books in a fire? No. All she wants is for you to have a reasonable perspective on your surroundings and a careful assessment on how you interact with all that's around you. And like Ariana, she seems to love mess. Now we're on to the last of the OG Vanderpumpers, and this is probably one of my other current favorites. This is Sheena Marie Shea. Sheena. Her entrance into the first episode of the show, which segued out of a conversation that she had with her ex-boyfriend's ex-wife, is basically iconic at this point. Since then, she's been accused of being a homewrecker, a flip-flopper, a Snapchat-obsessed Kardashian wannabe, a bad friend, all sorts of things. But of this cast, except for maybe Ariana and Brittany, I think Sheena's probably done the fewest terrible things, at least on camera. There's definitely a few things with regards to like her ex-husband and like that divorce that I think you could like reasonably call out, but overall she's been on the lower side of problematic on this cast. The worst thing you could really say about her is that she's kind of a striver. She's leveraged a wedding and a divorce for airtime, and she's fallen in and out with the Witches of WeHo so many times that it's almost strange watching her in this past season where she finally just doesn't seem to care about them. She kind of makes me think of Vanity Fair by William Thackeray, and like, confession, I've only seen like the movie adaptation of the book, so I'm basing a lot of this on the Wikipedia entry, so I don't know how legit this is. But Sheena kind of seems to have that sort of like Becky Sharp quality to her. She's clearly ambitious and striving and probably manipulative, and she may not go about her ambitions in the most like pristine of ways, but she's a little bit charming in her own self-centered kind of way. So from there, we're gonna move on to the last two of the New York cast, and the first is James fucking Kennedy. James is one of the more recent additions to the cast, and I guess you could say he contains multitudes. He's a DJ who has described himself as White Kanye. He was actually going to be roommates with Tom Sandoval when Tom Sandoval and Kristen like first broke up, except that James then had sex with Kristen on Tom Sandoval's bed, famously with Tom Sandoval's condoms. It was a whole thing, but that's basically how James got on the show. Since then, he's been both the bully and the bullied, treating people like absolute shit, while also being held to a standard that most of the rest of this cast can't meet. As a lot of people have pointed out, he's kind of like a younger version of Chax. He's manipulative, mean, and misogynist, but also strangely compelling. When he's good, he's hysterical, pointing out the absurdities of everyone around him, but when he's bad, he's horrifying. He reminds me so much of Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk, a book that is filled with men who are basically just self-sabotaging and literally fighting with themselves in lieu of actually improving themselves to be like functional members of society, but who are also kind of entertaining in a way that you hate yourself for. Last and maybe least is Lala. The other more recent addition to the cast, Lala started off rocky in large part because she lied about what she claimed was a modeling work trip, but turned out to basically be a boat party. She's fat-shamed other people and been slut-shamed in response. But her power in the show, and consequently her friendships, has grown thanks in part to her off-screen fiance, Randall, who keeps her and I guess her friends outfitted in private jets. Kind of like Brittany earlier, I sort of had a hard time picking something for Lala just because I don't really fully get her yet, but I'm gonna go with Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden for a few reasons. Memoirs of a Geisha was written by a white American man taking on a highly specific aspect of Japanese culture and femininity. Is it possible for this to be done respectfully? Sure. Was it? Like the book's depictions of geisha, Lala's sense of empowerment and sexuality, while maybe rooted in something real for her, are kind of portrayed on camera as if they're largely informed by the male gaze. And Lala's entire affect is appropriative and fetishistic, though in her case, she's a white woman from Utah talking about popping people in the streets and the spirit of Tupac taking over her body. So there we have it. We have the Vanderpump Rules cast as books. I'm just kind of like picturing a library with all of these books together, and there are a bunch of books just basically like yelling at each other, like it's just a library full of toxicity or something. I'm gonna be honest, I may have spent way too much time planning this video. I put in a lot of thought, even if it doesn't seem like it, and I'm not sure I should have. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Any moment to talk about Vanderpump Rules is, in my opinion, a good moment. So if you are a fan of Vanderpump Rules, definitely let me know. Let me know what you guys have thought about the season, even if you loved it, because I hated it. One last note, I forgot to put this in when I was filming, so I'm doing like another quick filming right now. I started a newsletter. I basically realized that like I haven't been able to post videos as frequently as I want, but I still have a lot I want to talk about in terms of booktube and science and all of this stuff. So I wanted a newsletter where I could do some more writing about all of that stuff, keep you guys updated on things I'm reading and watching and everything, and also have a little section of recent science reads, which is something that I'm going to be doing again on my channel, but I wanted to be able to do that on a more regular basis because there is always more science stuff to read. So if you guys are interested, it is you can subscribe at okidokiboki.substack.com. I will have a link below. And thank you to all of you guys who already have. So yeah, bye.